Okay, for example 3 on page 279, let's look at filling in a ratio table. We kind of did that in example 2 because even though they didn't have a table drawn to show the represent the brown sugar and the flour, I kind of added one. So we're basically just going to do the same thing again that we were doing in the last lesson, but we're going to have some decimals and some fractions in some of these boxes. So page 279 tells us that the same cookie recipe that we were talking about in example 2 calls for 1 cup of peanut butter and 2.5 cups of rolled oats. Okay, so we have peanut butter and oats. Now, this ratio is 1 cup of peanut butter for every 2.5 cups of rolled oats. And in the chart that they've given us, oats is on the bottom and peanut butter is on the top. So we can't write that in our first set of boxes because this is where we want to put our unit rate, right? And we know our unit rate is going to have a 1 as a denominator. So it tells us if the recipe needs to be adjusted, find the missing amount for each ingredient. And they tell us that figure out how much oats we need if we've got 1.5 cups of peanut butter, and then figure out how much peanut butter we need if we've got 1.25 cups of oats, and then what about if we've got 5 cups of oats? Well, we could work every piece of this out step by step, but let's just do a little mental math because that's probably how you're going to approach problems like this in real life anyway. If I take this column here, I recognize that 1 cup of peanut butter and 2.5 cups of oats is going to just be doubled when I come to this column because 5 is 2.5 2 times, right? 2.5 and 2.5 makes 5. So this column doubled makes this last column. So that means if I double the oats, I need to double the peanut butter. Okay? So I very quickly filled out one column. Now the easiest way to get to my unit rate would be to take this column here because it has whole numbers in it. So if I take this fraction, 2/5, and change it into a unit rate, I know that I said 5 divided by 5 makes 1, and 2 divided by 5 makes 2/5. Okay? So that tells me my unit rate is going to be 2/5 of a cup of peanut butter with 1 cup of oats. So now that I've got my unit rate, I can begin finding these last 2 empty boxes here. Okay? So if I've got 2/5 cup of peanut butter to 1 cup of oats, I'm trying to figure out how much peanut butter I need for 1.5 cups. The first thing that we want to do is get rid of this fraction. So how are we going to do that? Well, if we multiply by 5/1 up here, those cancel. We get 2. If we multiply by 5 down here, we get 5. That basically brings us to our final column, 2/5. So I can use this fraction and compare it to these other columns that are missing. So that's what I'm going to do. Instead of working with my unit rate every time, since it has a fraction in it, I'm going to work with 2/5. So I'm going to say 2/5 is going to be equal to 1.5 over what, right? Now, how did I turn 2 into 1.5? Well, I've divided it by something because 1.5 is smaller than 2. But let's think about it this way. Let's put a question mark here for our unknown, or you might want to put an X or an N. I think I'm actually going to put an X there. This is the piece I'm looking for right now. And then when I have a fraction equal to another fraction, that's called a proportion. This is probably not introduced until the next lesson, but we're going to get a lesson ahead because using proportions makes it super easy to solve these kind of problems. A proportion, the way I solve a proportion is through cross products. So basically I multiply these two pieces together, and then I say they're equal to these two pieces multiplied together. That's cross products. So I'm going to say 2 times x, that makes 2x, and then 5 times 1.5, that makes 7.5. Now, how do I isolate my variable? I undo this multiplication with division. What I do to the left side of the fraction equation, I want to do to the right. So now I want to say 7.5 divided by 2, and I get 3.75. And that tells me what goes here, 3.75. Okay, now if you're not using a calculator, you can work this out one of two ways. First, you can work it out as a division problem. 7.5 divided by 2. You can say 2 goes into 7 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6. We subtract and get 1. We bring down our 5. 2 goes into 15 7 times. 2 times 7 is 14. We subtract and get 1. We annex a 0 and bring that down. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 times 5 is 10. And we're done. And then our decimal point just comes straight up, 3.75. Okay. Another way to work that would be to say 7.5 is like 7.5. So I'm going to say 7.5 divided by 2. I need to turn this into an improper fraction. 15 over 2 divided by 2 over 1. Keep, change, flip. 15 over 2 times 2 over 1. Cancel, cancel. We are not getting 3.75, are we? We're getting 15. 15 over 2 divided by 2 over 1. Keep, oh, I did this backwards. Should be keep, change, flip. The 2's will not cancel because they'll both be in the denominator. And then I get 15 over 4, and I can say 4 goes into 15 3 times. 4 times 3 is 12, 13, 14, 15 left, 3 3/4. 3 3/4, 3.75, very same thing, right? And then you also can check out whatever methods they're using here on page 279 in your textbook, and they may be working it a completely different way. But the proportion method is the easiest, in my opinion, and it's the fastest. So you're not spending as much time getting to your end result. So let's do another problem. I've got 2/5, and I'm going to compare 2/5 to x over 1.25. Okay, so I'm going to use cross products. 5 times x makes 5x, and then 2 times 1.25 makes 2.5. Now I need to divide both sides by 5 to undo this multiplication, and I'll get x equals 2.5 divided by 5 gives me 0.5, or 1/2. Okay, and I have completed the chart. Now, there's a skill check B on page 280 that gives you a couple of opportunities to practice this, or you can just go straight into the assignment. And let's look at what the assignment is going to be. Now, we're going to do 1 and 2. And then let's do problems 3 through 19 all odd, 3 through 19 odd, and let's do 22 to 34 even. And then let's do our cumulative review, 42 through 51.